We are examining the research paper, Measuring and Mitigating Over-Alignment for LLMs in Multilingual Criminal Law Courts, by Arthur Wuhrmann, Gaetan Stein, Daniel Brunner, and Andrei Kucharavy. The Swiss Federal Supreme Court processes documents across 4 official languages. To handle this, they deploy internal, on-premise large language models to assist their clerks. A major portion of this workload involves translating and summarizing criminal rulings. By definition, these legal texts contain highly sensitive material, including detailed descriptions of violent and sexual offenses. This is a daily, high-volume requirement. Court employees cannot avoid this material. Processing traumatic criminal case files is their legitimate, routine job. When standard commercial models encounter this text, their safety guardrails trigger. They identify the legal documents as prohibited content and refuse to process them. This capability loss is the alignment tax. This over-alignment manifests in 2 distinct ways. The first is a hard refusal, where the model aborts the task entirely. The second is a soft disclaimer, where the model completes the task but attaches unsolicited moralizing or warnings, compromising objective neutrality. Current safety benchmarks like X-Test fail to capture this problem. They probe models using adversarial questions designed to seem unsafe, mostly in English. They do not measure performance on inherently sensitive, multilingual professional workflows. To utilize LLMs in enterprise environments, we need a method to decouple the required domain-specific text processing capabilities from generalized safety restrictions. To quantify this failure, the researchers engineered a diagnostic tool called TF Refusal Bench, built specifically for the criminal law domain. They began with 15,000 public rulings from the court. Applying a multilingual obscenity and violence lexicon, they filtered the dataset down to 648 highly sensitive extracts. Instead of selecting extracts based on whether current models refused them, which would bias the test, they ranked the text based on objective severity. A panel of 3 LLM judges performed a Bradley-Terry pairwise comparison to isolate the most graphic material. This pie chart illustrates the category distribution of the final top 100 most severe extracts. The data skews heavily towards sexual offenses and offenses involving minors, reflecting the hardest edges of criminal law. Because the original rulings were primarily in German and French, researchers used a weakly aligned model to synthetically translate the 100 extracts into Italian and English. By mixing and matching the source, target, and instruction languages, they generated 5,200 distinct test prompts. These prompts evaluate the models on 2 precise functions: cross-lingual translation and same-language summarization. Safety triggers are not completely deterministic. Testing revealed that 27. The testing also exposed a specific linguistic vulnerability in safety alignment, known as the language concordance effect. To understand this, we look at a baseline cross-lingual task, translating a German legal text into French while writing the instructions in French. This heat map displays hard refusal rates across language combinations. If you change the instruction language to match the sensitive source text, like asking in German to translate German into French, hard refusals spike up to 2.6 times. The second heat map maps out the distribution of soft disclaimers. While Italian triggers the fewest warnings, the specific language that causes a model to panic and hedge depends entirely on its training data. Global safety tuning is structurally asymmetric. It disproportionately penalizes native language workflows and multilingual environments. Having measured the scope of the problem, the researchers tested 2 engineering interventions to bypass these guardrails. The first approach is a short institutional system prompt. This explicitly informs the model that it is operating within the Swiss Federal Supreme Court and that handling explicit material is required. This prompting cuts the refusal rate in half, but it does not eliminate the alignment tax entirely. The models still occasionally refuse or moralize. The second intervention is a mathematical alteration of the model's weights, called obliteration, applied via LoRa adapters. Research shows a model's refusal behavior is mediated by a single linear direction in its internal representations. Obliteration targets and severs this specific pathway. Using Heretic, researchers orthogonalize the weights against this refusal direction to minimize rejections. The result is immediate. Hard refusals plummet to absolute 0%. The model processes every document. However, the intervention is not flawless. While hard refusals vanish, a residual number of soft disclaimers still bleed through into the output. Obliteration forces open-weight models to complete enterprise tasks, but it shifts the security burden entirely away from the model's internal architecture. Stripping out a core behavioral vector requires checking the model's remaining cognitive logic. On standard evaluations, the obliterated model's NLP capabilities remain intact. Task quality on complex legal translations and summarizations holds steady, preserving its utility for the court. But removing the refusal vector comes with a severe out-of-domain cost. The preservation of translation ability is mirrored by a massive degradation in adversarial safety. When tested against HarmBench, a standard dataset of genuinely malicious requests, the model's vulnerability jumps from a baseline of 14.5% to 55.5%. Alongside this vulnerability to attacks, the model also records a 7.1-point drop in general truthfulness. Because the model will now comply with almost any instruction, it cannot be exposed to the public. Deployment mandates strict, air-gapped, on-premise hosting behind institutional access controls. Engineering an uncensored LLM works, but it demands that IT departments secure the perimeter, because the algorithm will no longer secure itself. This research provides TF Refusal Bench, a severity-selected methodology for measuring multifaceted AI overalignment in specialized domains, moving beyond basic English safety tests. The methodology does have limits. Relying on an LLM as a judge for subjective metrics like text sanitization introduces unverified biases into the scoring. Furthermore, using machine-translated parallel corpora means the dataset may lack the precise linguistic nuances of severity found in the original French and German rulings. Future research will need to investigate secondary effects of the intervention, specifically why obliterated models occasionally exhibit increased verbosity. For legal AI engineers and enterprise architects, the paper yields 3 actionable takeaways. First, overalignment extends beyond outright refusal. Unsolicited disclaimers are equally detrimental to professional task faithfulness. Second, safety guardrails are linguistically asymmetric. Writing your instruction in the same language as the sensitive source text maximizes the likelihood that the model will fail. Third, obliteration solves enterprise over refusal, but it shatters out-of-domain safety. There is no free lunch in AI alignment.